The $1,500 monthly investing rule. You're sitting there doing the math on what it would take to actually retire someday, and the numbers are kind of depressing. You plug various amounts into a retirement calculator, $200 a month, $500 a month, whatever you think you can afford, and the projections show you retiring at 73 with maybe enough to cover basic expenses if you're lucky. You adjust the numbers up, trying to figure out what it would actually take to retire comfortably, maybe even early, and you keep landing on this amount that feels simultaneously achievable and impossible, around $1,500 a month. And part of you thinks, there's no way I can invest $1,500 every month. That's $18,000 a year. That's like a third of my take-home pay. But another part of you realizes that people do it somehow, that this is probably what separates people who build real wealth from people who are still working at 65 wondering where all the money went. My name is Jack, and I spend way too much time analyzing wealth-building patterns, retirement projections, and specifically trying to understand the inflection points where consistent investing behaviors translate into genuinely life-changing outcomes. And what I've discovered is that $1,500 a month isn't just some random number financial advisors throw around. It's approximately the threshold where, if you can maintain it for a couple of decades, you cross from hopefully I'll be okay in retirement to I will definitely be financially independent and probably earlier than most people. Because here's what makes $1,500 monthly investing special. It's the sweet spot where time, compound interest, and human psychology all align to create wealth that actually feels substantial rather than just incrementally better than nothing. It's high enough that the math works impressively over time, but it's also, and this is crucial, achievable for a lot more people than you might think, if they're willing to make it a genuine priority. So, if you've been wondering what amount you should actually be targeting for consistent investing, or if you're trying to figure out whether all this saving and investing actually leads somewhere meaningful, or if you're curious about what financial independence really requires in concrete terms, this is for you. Because understanding why $1,500 matters, and more importantly, how to actually get there and maintain it, might completely reshape how you think about building wealth. The math that changes everything. Let's start with the most compelling part. What actually happens when you invest $1,500 every month for an extended period? Because the numbers are genuinely impressive in ways that smaller amounts just aren't. If you invest $1,500 per month in a diversified portfolio averaging 8% annual returns, which is conservative based on historical stock market performance, here's what happens. After 10 years, you've contributed $180,000 of your own money, but your portfolio is worth about $275,000. That extra $95,000 is compound growth, investment returns building on themselves. After 20 years, you've contributed $360,000, but your portfolio is worth roughly $880,000. You've nearly tripled your contributions through compound growth. That $880,000 is legitimately life-changing money. It's not retire and live in luxury money, but it's absolutely I have financial security and options money. After 30 years, you've contributed $540,000, and your portfolio is worth approximately $2.2 million. You're a multimillionaire from consistent middle-class saving. You can retire comfortably. You can help your kids. You have genuine wealth that provides security and freedom. Now compare that to investing $500 a month, a third of the amount. After 30 years, you've contributed $180,000 and your portfolio is worth about $750,000. That's still good. That's still meaningful, but it's less than a third of what you'd have with $1,500 monthly. The difference isn't linear, it's exponential because of how compound growth works. This is why $1,500 matters specifically. It's the amount where the compound growth becomes genuinely impressive, where you're not just saving for retirement but building substantial wealth, where the math shifts from this will help to this will transform my financial future. I remember running these calculations for myself when I was trying to figure out my target savings rate, and seeing the 30-year projection hit over $2 million was the moment I went from I should probably save more to I am making this happen no matter what. Because suddenly it wasn't abstract. It was concrete, achievable wealth that would completely change my life trajectory. The income threshold reality. So here's the question everyone asks. What kind of income do you need to invest $1,500 a month? And the answer is more accessible than you might think, but it does require intentionality. $1,500 a month is $18,000 per year. To invest that while also covering your living expenses, you probably need a household income of somewhere between $75,000 and $100,000, depending on your location and lifestyle. At $75,000, you're investing about 24% of your gross income, which is aggressive but doable. At $100,000, it's 18%, which is very manageable. Now, if you're making $50,000 right now, $1,500 a month probably isn't realistic. That would be 36% of your gross income, which is just not sustainable for most people. But here's the thing, you don't have to hit $1,500 immediately. You can build up to it. Start with whatever you can do. Maybe that's $400 a month right now. But as your income grows through raises, job changes, career advancement, you increase your investing proportionally. You get a $5,000 raise, you increase your monthly investing by $350. You switch jobs and get a $15,000 bump, you increase your investing by $1,000. The key is to reach $1,500 relatively early in your career, ideally by your early to mid-30s, so you have 25 to 30 years for it to compound. If you don't hit that number until you're 45, you've lost a decade of growth. Still worth doing, but you've given up enormous potential wealth. I watch people make this mistake constantly. They get raises and lifestyle inflate proportionally, so their savings rate stays flat even as their income grows. Someone making $60,000 saves $500 a month. They get promoted to $90,000 and they're still saving $500 a month because their lifestyle expanded to fill the income increase. But if you can resist lifestyle inflation and channel income growth into investing, hitting $1,500 monthly becomes achievable much faster than you'd think. The discipline isn't in living like a monk forever. It's in not inflating your lifestyle proportionally to every income increase until you've hit your wealth building targets. The Lifestyle Design Challenge. Here's where it gets real. To invest $1,500 a month on a typical middle-class income, you have to make deliberate lifestyle choices that go against the cultural grain. And understanding what those choices actually look like is crucial. The biggest expenses for most people are housing, transportation, and food. These three categories probably eat up 60 to 70% of your after-tax income. So if you want to free up $1,500 a month for investing, you need to be strategic about all three. Housing. You probably can't afford to live alone in an expensive apartment in a trendy neighborhood and invest $1,500 a month unless you're making six figures. You might need roommates longer than you want. You might need to live farther from the city center. You might need to buy a modest home instead of stretching for the dream house. These aren't fun choices, but they're temporary trade-offs for long-term wealth. Transportation. The average new car payment in America is around $700 to $800 a month. If you're serious about investing $1,500 monthly, you probably can't have a car payment that size. You need to buy used, drive it until it dies, and treat transportation as a utilitarian necessity rather than a status symbol. I know this is culturally difficult. We've been conditioned to judge success partly by what we drive. But it's mathematical reality. Food and entertainment. You can't be eating out constantly, ordering delivery all the time, going to expensive bars and restaurants regularly. Not because you need to be miserable and deprive yourself, but because small recurring expenses compound just like investments do. $200 a week on restaurants and bars is $800 a month that could be invested instead. The lifestyle that supports $1,500 monthly investing looks pretty normal, actually. It's just deliberately modest. You live in a nice but not fancy place, you drive a reliable but not new car, you cook most of your meals. You have an entertainment budget, but you're intentional about it. You don't try to keep up with the spending of people who aren't building wealth. And here's what's interesting. This lifestyle doesn't feel like deprivation when you're clear about what you're building toward. When you can see your net worth climbing by $30,000 or $40,000 a year, when you're watching compound growth start to accelerate, the trade-offs don't feel like sacrifices. They feel like strategic choices. I lived with roommates until I was 31, drove a 12-year-old car until it literally died, and cooked probably 90% of my meals at home for years. Not because I was broke, I was making decent money, but because I was prioritizing wealth building over lifestyle signaling. And now that I'm on the other side of it, I can tell you, I don't regret a single one of those choices. The tax optimization secret. Here's something crucial that makes $1,500 monthly investing more achievable than it appears. A significant portion of it should be pre-tax contributions to retirement accounts, which means it costs you less than $1,500 in take-home pay. If you max out a 401k in 2026, the contribution limit is $23,500. That's about $1,960 per month. But here's the magic. Those are pre-tax dollars. If you're in the 22% federal tax bracket, a $1,960 contribution only reduces your take-home pay by about $1,530 because you're saving on taxes. Similarly, contributing to a traditional IRA or HSA reduces your taxable income. The money goes to retirement savings instead of to the government. Over decades, this tax savings compounds into hundreds of thousands of dollars. So when I say invest $1,500 a month, the actual structure might look like this. $1,500 to your 401k, costing you about $1,170 in take-home pay after tax savings, plus $500 to a Roth IRA or taxable brokerage account. Total invested, $2,000 per month, but the impact on your monthly take-home is only about $1,670. This is why understanding tax-advantaged accounts is so important. People who only think about after-tax investing are leaving enormous amounts of money on the table. The government has created these vehicles specifically to encourage retirement saving. Use them. I didn't fully appreciate this until a friend who's a CPA walked me through it, and I realized I could effectively invest significantly more than I thought by properly utilizing 401k contributions. It wasn't about finding more money, it was about structuring my savings more efficiently. The specific strategy will depend on your tax situation, but the principle is universal. Prioritize tax-advantaged contributions until you've maxed them out, then add taxable investing on top. Don't do it the other way around. The psychological ownership effect. There's this weird psychological phenomenon that happens when you get to $1,500 monthly investing that doesn't really happen at lower amounts. You start to feel like you own your future rather than hoping for a good outcome. When you're investing $300 a month, you're doing the right thing, but it doesn't feel transformational. You check your retirement account and it's growing, but slowly. It feels like you're dutifully contributing to some distant, abstract future. But when you're consistently investing $1,500 a month and you see your net worth growing by $25,000 or $35,000 or more per year, it shifts from abstract to concrete. You're not hoping retirement works out. You're building a retirement that will definitely work out. You're not aspiring to financial independence. You're creating financial independence month by month. This psychological ownership creates a positive feedback loop. You feel in control, which makes you want to maintain the discipline. You see real progress, which reinforces the behavior. You start identifying as someone who's building wealth, not someone who's trying to build wealth. And this identity shift affects everything. You make different career decisions because you're thinking long-term. You resist lifestyle inflation more easily because you don't want to slow your progress. You become protective of your monthly investing habit because it's central to your identity and your future. I noticed this shift in myself around the time I got my monthly investing up to about $1,400. Before that, I was trying to save more. After that, I was a serious investor building wealth systematically. Same person, but the identity felt different, and that different identity made the behavior automatic rather than something I had to force. The early start multiplier. Here's something that makes $1,500 monthly investing either incredibly powerful or frustratingly difficult depending on when you start. Time is the most important variable in the equation, and you can't get it back. If you invest $1,500 per month, starting at age 25 and continue until 65, you contribute $720,000 and end up with about $5.2 million at 8% returns. If you start at 35 instead and invest the same $1,500 monthly until 65, you contribute $540,000 and end up with about $2.2 million, less than half the final wealth despite only contributing 25% less. That 10-year delay costs you $3 million. 10 years, $3 million. That's the power of compound growth over time, and it's why financial advisors are so obsessed with getting young people to start investing early. But here's the reality. Most people in their early 20s aren't in a position to invest $1,500 a month. They're dealing with student loans, entry-level salaries, and just establishing themselves financially. And that's okay. The goal isn't to shame anyone for their starting point. The goal is to get to $1,500 monthly as quickly as possible. If you're 25 and can only do $400 a month right now, that's your starting point. But can you get to $800 by 28? $1,200 by 30? $1,500 by 32? Because getting there by 32 versus 37 is the difference of hundreds of thousands of dollars in retirement and wealth. This is why I'm always telling young people to prioritize income growth aggressively in their 20s and early 30s. Not so you can buy a nicer car or a bigger apartment, but so you can ramp up your investing while compound growth can still work its magic over multiple decades. When life gets in the way. Let's be real about something. Maintaining $1,500 monthly investing for decades is hard. Life happens. You lose a job, you have kids, you buy a house. Medical emergencies arise. And the question becomes, do you stop investing entirely during these periods, or do you find a way to maintain it even when it's difficult? This is where having automated systems becomes crucial. If your $1,500 is automatically deducted from your paycheck into your 401k, it happens whether times are good or tough. You build your lifestyle around what's left over, not around your gross income. But there will still be moments when you're tempted to pause or reduce investing. And honestly, sometimes that's the right move temporarily. If you lose your job, yeah, you might need to stop investing and live on savings for a few months. That's what emergency funds are for. The key is to make it temporary and to get back to $1,500 as quickly as possible. Not to let a temporary pause become permanent lifestyle inflation. Not to decide that because you couldn't maintain it during a crisis, you don't need to maintain it when things stabilize. I've seen people derail their wealth building over this. They pause investing for 6 months during a rough patch, and then 6 months turns into 2 years because they've gotten used to having that money available for other things. And suddenly they're 45 with far less saved than they should have because they never reestablished the discipline. The wealthy people I know who got there through systematic investing, they maintained their investing through job changes, through having kids, through buying homes, through all of life's disruptions. They made it non-negotiable. And yes, sometimes that meant other things had to give. They bought smaller houses, they delayed certain purchases, they made trade-offs. But they maintained the investing, the freedom it actually buys. So what does hitting this $1,500 monthly investing target actually buy you in practical terms? Because it's easy to talk about millions of dollars in 30 years, but what does that mean for your actual life? It means you can probably retire in your early 60s, or maybe even late 50s if you're aggressive. It means you won't be dependent on Social Security or your kids in old age. It means you can handle financial emergencies without derailing your retirement. It means you have options. You can change careers, take a year off, start a business, help your parents or children financially. But maybe more importantly, it means you get to live the second half of your life without financial stress. You're not 55 wondering if you can ever retire. You're not 62 trying to figure out if you can afford healthcare until Medicare kicks in. You're not 75 rationing spending because you're worried about outliving your money. That psychological freedom is worth more than any material possession you might buy with that $1,500 if you spent it Zainya instead of invested it. It's the difference between anxiety and peace, between limitation and options, between dependence and independence. And here's what I wish someone had told me earlier. The effort required to invest $1,500 monthly is front-loaded. It's hard in your 30s and early 40s when you're establishing the pattern and resisting lifestyle inflation. But once the pattern is established, once the compound growth kicks in, it becomes easier. And by the time you're in your 50s, you're coasting toward financial independence, while your peers who spent that money are panicking about retirement. The $1,500 monthly investing rule isn't just about hitting a number. It's about buying freedom, security, and options for the second half of your life. And yeah, it requires sacrifice and discipline in the first half. But that's the trade. That's always the trade. The question is whether you're willing to make it. Because on the other side of this discipline, on the other side of years of investing $1,500 every month while your friends are leasing new cars and taking expensive vacations, is genuine financial freedom. And from what I've seen, it's absolutely worth it.